All right, 11 questions with Wxltzy, who is a professional Apex Legends player. I say that in quotation marks, maybe. I don't know if you get paid right now. But hopefully you win some prize money here and there. But currently playing for Team Burger and about to compete at the ALGS Championship event. I think you're already over in the US at the moment, so must be pretty late for you. So let's crack on into it. I want to, just get a brief, idea from you, Wxltzy, as to how you kind of got started into Apex Legends and sort of what set you on this path in, I guess, esports, right? Because it's not something that everyone does straight off the bat, right? So how did you sort of get involved in it? Did you have any sort of previous comp experiences, or was Apex Legends like your first game?
No, I mean, I've never had such an in-depth comp experience. I've always been super competitive with the games that I've played. I started 2011, I think, playing games like COD, worked up to games like Rainbow Six and stuff like that. But this is definitely the first video game that I played where I've been playing at an international level.
Okay. Speaking of international level, right? Going over to Split 2 playoffs, that was your, I think, first experience playing quote unquote internationally. I guess you can make the argument that playing in APAC is internationally, but for the sake of arguments, let's just say Split 2 playoffs, you go play overseas. And it looked like things were going relatively well for you on those first couple of days when you were, obviously the context being you were playing on Sutoraiku still here. But you went into that third day. I think the expectations were relatively high after those first 2 days. But how did you guys sort of feel about the result at the end of the tournament? Because I think going out of day 2, you were quite happy and quite confident, but day 3 put a bit of a damper on things.
Yeah, we got the Casters curse on finals day. No, we played really well in groups. Top 5 winners bracket. Definitely achieved a lot higher than I thought in group stage. I thought we'd maybe sort of skim through to finals. Didn't have a lot of, I guess, not faith, but I sort of was expecting finals to be as far as we got. So I was really happy with that when we got there. It just came down to I think a lack of experience. Fussy's never really played at a super high competitive level, so it was just him not having much comp experience and then not much Gibby experience was it's hard for me to have a lot of faith sort of in that team. But he played out of his mind. I got to give him a lot of credit for that. He played really, really well. For his I think it was his second split. I think
that was his first split, was it not? Of pro.
His first.
I think he only played one split with you guys in APAC South, and then you went straight to playoffs. I'm pretty sure.
I think you're right. So that's what I mean. For him to have such little experience and to be the only controller Gibby in finals was I can't give him enough credit. And from the looks of things with Sutoraiku, he's sort of picked up where I left off, I guess. He seems to be playing really well. He's taken on to the Valk role and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think individually, I was really happy with how I performed in Sweden, and I felt I got the opportunity to play with Burger. So, yeah, I mean, I was really happy with the individual performance. But overall, yeah, finals was sort of where I was really hoping we got, and we achieved that. So I can't be mad.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of tied into my next couple of questions, actually. And one of them was, your individual performance. I think a lot of people were maybe positively surprised by you. I don't know that Wxltzy was the biggest name going into that event, but you had a couple of kind of nice clutches, a couple of rounds where it sort of looked like Sutoraiku was just booked, and then you would win a 1v1 clutch or something like that. There was, I think, the 1v1 clutch to win a game as well. So for you as an individual, did you sort of feel like your form was kind of hitting its peak at that international event? Do you find maybe you're a big game player, something like that?
I definitely wouldn't say that was my peak. I think my peak will be champs. Mm-hmm. The way that we're playing right now in scrims, especially, I think when it comes to champs day, you guys will see, especially I'm feeling very confident. I think the biggest thing for me right now is the team that I've got around me sort of helps enable me. So I think my peak is just going to be higher when it comes to champs. But how I performed in Sweden was basically I wanted to go out and just really put on an individual performance that I could be proud of. And I think I did that. like winners bracket, I think I was tied kill leader with Yanya, and then finals was obviously a little bit rough, but I can't say that I really got put in a position to do much. It was kind of just like some bad IGL calls and some bad chemistry sort of just led to us sort of falling over before we could really like get a chance to do anything. And especially me, being that I'm sort of like a fragger, if I get put in like a bad spot, there's like not a lot that I can do. There's only like so much I can shoot my way out kind of thing. So I'd say I'm still happy with my performance in Sweden. And I think it's like the reason how I got to Team Burger. Like I did basically enough to sort of get my name out there and enough that I could sort of be seen by some other teams, which was like sort of like an end goal of mine.
All right. Well, I mean, on that point, right, moving from Sutoraiku to Burger, do you want to give me a bit of a rundown as to how that sort of played out? Obviously, Pricey, I guess, was removed from Team Burger for one reason or another, but, you know, did they come to you? Did you go to them? How did that sort of all come together? And, you know, how quickly did you make that decision?
Quicker than I guess people would expect. I was a little bit one foot out the door with Sutoraiku, being that I've been through so many teammates so quick, like in such a short amount of time, and then having like a controller Gibby is like a really, really bad move. I don't recommend controller Gibby for any team. It's just not. It's not a controller character. So, I mean, how it happened, I'm not too sure. I'd say it was just like, given that Jaro was like my old teammate of Sutoraiku, we already had like chemistry and stuff. And me and Empty in Sweden, actually, like we hadn't really talked too much before that, but actually turns out that Empty's not a bad bloke. So we sort of got along in Sweden, and I guess they saw potentially me from my performance in Sweden, and I guess we just sort of took the leap. And I'm not like I can't speak for Pricey obviously, but yeah, we ended up making that decision sort of like collectively. It wasn't so much like one person came to another. It was just sort of like mutual, I guess.
Yeah, let's just do it. All right. Well, we're speaking to split two playoffs maybe, and I guess the general strength of the APAC South region, obviously the region that you compete in. What do you think about the region? You know, do you think it's you know, obviously there's a lot of discussion around slots and, you know, who deserves what. Does this region deserve more or less or blah, blah, blah. What's your take on that? You know, where does APAC South kind of sit in the hierarchy of Apex Legends esports?
I feel like APAC South in Apex sort of gets like a lot of disrespect. We sort of got put to the same level as South America, but I mean, obviously after Sweden, it's just clear that we're not on that level. I wouldn't go as far as to say that we're on the same level as some of the other regions like, you know, NA and EU, even though we had, I believe, the same amount of teams make finals as EU. I'd say like overall they're still like a stronger region. But I think we're definitely like most slept on. I think especially like with some of the mechanical talent we have in the region, it's hard to say that we're only worthy of 5 spots. And, you know, the other thing is we have no tournaments in our region. So the fact that we have less time to sort of scrim and get get as much practice as other regions, and we come out and we still perform like just as well, if not better than some of the other regions. I think that like that says a lot more than what people sort of take into account. But I'd say APAC is like APAC South specifically is. I don't want to I can't say it's as good as NA and EU, but I'd say we're just so much better than what we're given credit for.
I tend to agree, but maybe I'm a little bit biased. And again, sort of on the topic of APAC South, you know, there's obviously been a bit of a debacle around Dreamfire and Lightning Unicorn, a couple of teams that have players coming through from China and very, very difficult to get out of China at the moment. So, you know, they've had to come in with some substitutions. So I'd love to sort of get your 2 cents on, you know, what you think things are going to go like for those 2 teams, Dreamfire and Lightning Unicorn. And for those that don't know, Dreamfire is Roy, Tao, and Bolin, and Lightning Unicorn is Lala Bang, Appraiser, and Oki for this event. Now, obviously, 2 substitutions on both of those teams. Do you have any sort of 2 cents on the substitutions, or you know, do you think they were relevant teams to begin with, or you know, whether or not they're even going to be relevant teams at this point now, having to have those 2 subs? What do you think that sort of means for those teams?
Yeah, look, I think it's definitely a tough situation that I can definitely say I would not want to be in.
Mm.
I think with DF picking up Bolin and Tao, I think is a lot better than what. Sorry, is it ATH? It's ATH, right?
Lightning Unicorn is the other team.
Lightning Unicorn. I think it's just like a lot better for DF because Lightning Unicorn has picked up two players that sort of haven't been, playing and scrimming for like quite a long time. So it's not. I can't see it being as bad for DF, but also DF at the moment is not getting much practice in either. Like they haven't been scrimming as much as what LU has. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say like how well they will do, but I will say that I think had they have both kept their original rosters, I think they would definitely. It's no question they would have done like infinitely better.
I mean, as in a bit of an aside, and I guess I won't count this as one of my questions. I always tend to do this. It's 11 questions, but it ends up being 12 or 13 because I think of something on the way. As far as those teams that represented APAC South in split 2 playoffs versus at champs, had we had full strength Dreamfire, had we had full strength Lightning Unicorn, and obviously now EXO is there as well at champs, what do you think the discrepancy is there? Do you think that, you've got a better representation of top teams at champs, or did you get that maybe from the teams playing at split 2 playoffs?
No, I think for sure, DF, EXO, and Lightning Unicorn were or would have been a much better representation. I think the other teams that went to Sweden obviously did a really good job. Obviously, Rig is Rig. They have just won, so they've done a phenomenal job. But we were like, I think I was very surprised that DF and EXO didn't qual for Sweden in the first place. So seeing them at champs, I think, would have been definitely like a better representation. Especially EXO. EXO, I know, have been waiting for a LAN for a very, very long time. And I think like half the reason that they've been not coasting, but coasting in a way and haven't been performing maybe to like their potential is because like there hasn't been LANs. So I think like with them qualifying for this LAN, you're probably going to see like the best of EXO. So I think the representation definitely will be better.
Yeah, it's always interesting for me actually with the EXO because like when I first started casting Apex, it sort of felt like it was the Reignite and EXO show, and then after like 6 months to a year, it ended up just being the Reignite show, and EXO kind of was like third, fourth, like here and there kind of thing. But hopefully they're going to sort of step up because they at least have their full team going over to champs. So that's good for them. Now I want to take this in a different direction, and this is something that's sort of been plaguing yourselves and Sutoraiku, and especially you, obviously now being on both of these teams for quite a while, is that you haven't been able to find an org. So it's a bit of a weird one, right? Because you look at these teams and you think, well, they're pretty much guaranteed international slots, maybe 3 of them a year. Why can you not find an org, right? You guys were the only 2 teams in the final lobby, and I think the only 2 teams actually at split 2 playoffs, if I remember correctly, that were unsigned by an org. So we were. What are the difficulties that you guys are sort of finding in like looking for an org? Because I know even as soon as you moved over to Burger, you guys sort of did another one where you were like looking for an org. This is our team. Someone pick us up, but still nothing, right?
Yeah. So I know for us, the biggest thing was not accepting offers that weren't worth like what we sort of wanted, what we're worth. We had like a lot of offers and some that were like really good. We also had a lot of orgs ghosting us and wasting our time. So I think, like I obviously can't name names, but we did have like something lined up and then it got dragged out and we missed opportunities because of it. And in the end, we ended up just saying like, we'll pay for it. Because anything else is just going to be like we're just going to be losing out basically. Because if a team signs us late, they've done nothing to get us there in the first place. They're not going to do much to help us while we're here. So it wasn't really worth it because like they're just going to take a percentage of the winnings, and it just wasn't worth it. So in the end, we ended up just deciding like we'd go orgless. But I'd say definitely for us it was just like a lot of unprofessionalism. I don't know if that's the word. From like a lot of orgs and just a lot of time wasting, and it was quite a frustrating experience for us. But for Sutoraiku, I mean, it's hard for me to like speak on another team's like behalf, but I'd say like picking up Rico, who hasn't played the game for 6 to 12 months, I think, maybe even longer, and not having much like of a sort of like social status to sort of like go with it. Fussy, who's got like, even though he's done really well in the short amount of time that he's been playing, also doesn't have like the resume to sort of go with it. The only one that really does is Bullet. So I guess that would be why they're still orgless. That's all I can really sort of think of.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's strange though, like looking at the results you guys had at Split 2 playoffs, that neither has been picked up by an org. A bit unfortunate, but you know, maybe I think the only thing you can really do is continue to sort of perform at these international events, and eventually someone's going to take notice, whether it be an ANZ org or maybe an international org if you continue to play internationally. Anyway, that aside, you know, on the topic of like formats, match point format is an interesting discussion point, and I know it gets a bit of a bad rap outside of the Apex Legends ecosystem, because obviously I'm involved in a lot of esports titles, and people look at that and say, like, how can one team just win from winning one game? Like, is that fair? So yeah. As a pro player, right, as someone who is actually involved in this ecosystem, what are your thoughts on the match point format? Because I look at it from a viewership perspective, and I look at it from casting and a hype moment perspective. I think it's really good for that. But what is it like as a player?
I mean, like for a player, I guess I think it's pretty obvious that the format's like sort of terrible. I don't think it's fair for, and we've seen it in the past, teams to pop off like game in, game out for the entirety of a day, and for another team to come in and swoop the win after underperforming for an entire day. But at the same time, I guess like I can also see from the viewer's point of view, and like how hype it gets around that last game where everyone's on match point and they're all fighting for the win. But I just can't really see a world where like it's fair to the players, especially the ones that, you know, really pop off for the day. I think we've seen it in the past with maybe EU is the best example. I don't know if it was their champs or playoffs, but I remember Alliance had a huge day and ended up losing the win. Even though they had, I think, something crazy like 127 points or something like that. It happened in NA champs, I know for sure, with 100 Thieves. Not that those teams aren't deserving of the win. Because, you know, like, you win the final game, like that's really difficult to do. But it's just that you can't look past the fact that teams have just clearly outplayed you for the entire day, and you know they come up with a second or a third simply because of the format. It's just, in my opinion, it's just not fair.
All right. Well, speaking of wins, expectations for champs. Obviously, you're over there now, so you're starting to get a bit of a feel of how things are going. You've been scrimming, doing well, as you say. But you know, what are you? I don't know if I want to say what you expect necessarily, because I think that's very hard to sort of answer. But what's like an acceptable finish for Team Burger? Is it making it to that final lobby again, or do you want to go a bit deeper? Do you want to maybe make top 10 or top 5, or what? Where do you want to sit?
I mean, I think top 5 for Burger. It's a big call for sure. But I think, like, obviously we want to put up performance we want to put up a performance that we're proud of, which we will do. But I think if we come away with anything sort of less than top 5, you know, if like top 10 we'll be happy with. But I think like top 5 is just really the goal at the moment. It's not what we expect, but it's just the goal. It's what we really want. Like, you walk away with top 5 and you know that you've just played well on the day. And like at the end of the day, anyone can win, but there is a lot of RNG behind winning. You know, a lot of stuff's got to go your way to win. So like, I think top 5 for most teams would be the goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think with the format, like coming second is almost as good sometimes, or better than winning. Yeah. Like not in terms of, you know, obviously you haven't won and you haven't got all the prize money, but you can look at that and say, well, that guy actually kind of beat everyone, like clearly, whereas the first place team may have just got the win. And speaking of which, take this one back to Reignite winning Split 2 playoffs. And, you know, I think we were kind of lucky in a sense that like Reignite actually did play well on that final day. So you couldn't go and say, oh, Reignite, like they got lucky. Like they did win 2 games on that final day. And they were, I think, the second team to make it to match point. But what are your opinions on Reignite being able to go back to back, right? Assuming obviously Jen Burton can play, no COVID issues for them this time. What do you think was it a fluke, or do you think they can do it again?
No, I think they can definitely do it again. That like, I think with what has happened with Jen, I think he's going to come out with like sort of like a new fire and like a new sort of I'm not sure like how to put it, but I have a feeling he's going to come out swinging, and you're going to see like a very big performance from Rig. So whether it's first again, I think they'll definitely be top 5, sort of like minimum. They're just one of those teams that you can't really pick one of them and say like that's the weak link. They're sort of like just 3 very strong individual players, and when you've got that, and they're all on the same page, and then you also have Zero, who's proven himself to be a top IGL. You know, playing with a sub and still winning is just not easy to do at all. So yeah, I'd say, you know, their chances of winning back to back, I'd say is like, you know, as even as anyone else. I wouldn't say they've got like a better chance of winning, but I would say they're definitely going to put on a performance.
It's funny, isn't it? Because like obviously they won, and yet it still feels like they have something to prove because they didn't do it with Jen, and so now they need to do it with Jen, or they need to have a good performance with Jen, and then I feel like all of the questions will be put to rest. But anyway, last question before I let you go, and you know it sort of ties in with the last one as well a little bit, but who do you think are the top 3 teams that are champs? You know, if you had to predict the top 3, or who are the top 3 scariest teams, you know, who's going to perform in your opinion?
I don't think any team's scary, but top 3 teams at champs. Ooh, I think if I put Burger in, it's a bit of an ego call. But
we can give you a pass mark and say you're not allowed to choose Burger, like because that's obviously a given.
Okay.
So it has to be 3 other teams.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I would say Optic. Especially like versing them in scrims and how they performed in Sweden. I think if I don't pick them, I'm sort of throwing. I would say Rig, and the top. See, the other one's hard because I think it's either Team Liquid or TSM. I don't know who I'd put though. TSM's in form at the moment, so I'm probably gonna have to go with TSM.
Okay. No NA bias.
That's probably my top 3.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. That pretty much wraps it up. Thank you very much, Wxltzy. Do you have anything you want to say before you go?
No, I'm all good. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, you can follow Wxltzy at Wxltzy on Twitter, and I think you got a YouTube as well. Post some montages and stuff. So hit that up, and hopefully you enjoyed. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.